Are you happy with the new format of the race route?
Yeah, we're happy with not all of it, but some of it, clearly. We think that going to Asia has been a success for us, in particular because we had a lot more people in those regions connecting to the race, both in the media, in games, in the race village, and that's been good for everyone. At the same time, we also see that it wasn't everything that worked, so it was a learning experience because we did, all these new countries we went to were first-timers, and some of them had never even seen a sailing event in their lives. So for that reason, so there was a lot of challenges connected to it, but I think it gave the race a really good flavor. If we look back at the experiences we had in India and China, it was some great experiences for sailing and for the Volvo Ocean Race. So I think in total it was a positive experience. You can argue about the route and the sailing conditions, in particular up to China, which is something we definitely will consider heavily before we make the next choices. But in total for us, it was a positive experience.
There's a huge sentimental value to having a Southern Ocean leg. Are you looking at China would seem a very logical stopover the next time, considering the investment potential there. Breaking that long leg up into maybe a Captain Cook sort of route, China down to Sydney or Auckland, and then a proper Southern Ocean leg back up to Rio.
Yeah, we're looking at that. I can at least say that we are looking at it. This time they almost touched the beach in New Zealand before they headed east, so they pretty much had the whole Southern Ocean leg from New Zealand to Cape Horn in the race already. And it was a very long race, or long leg from China to Rio. And we clearly saw that with a leg that's that long, you kind of lose some of the interest in the middle of it if it just becomes too many days. So we are definitely looking into that. We have a strong interest from New Zealand and Australia, both of them, to be involved in the race. So we will be considering it, definitely.
Now, in the last two Volvo Ocean races, the teams that have been dominant have been two-boat, very large budget teams. And certainly with your background, you've come from running a smaller budget team. What is the Volvo Ocean Race doing to make smaller one-boat teams more competitive in the race?
Well, we're doing a lot of things. Not all of the things we are doing have been announced yet, and we're still working on some of these issues. But clearly we have had a strong objective over the last months to reduce the cost for any team that participates, and also to cap the cost for how much the team can actually spend to generate the benefit over the other teams. Some of the costs the teams are having, you could argue, doesn't really have a benefit at all. I mean, whether they stay in a 5-star hotel or a 2-star hotel, does it really make you win the race? You can always argue that, but clearly if you can buy yourself a benefit which a given smaller boat team are not able to buy, then that's not something we really like to see. We really like to see that there is a certain level. We have to accept that it costs to participate, and that level should give you a fair chance of doing well in the race. I think it's one thing we have learned in this process is that there's a big difference between the real difference between these teams and the perceived difference. For example, you could argue with the Ericsson team, certainly they had a huge advantage having two boats, no doubt about it. But was the advantage really two boats, or was it the fact that they started 1 year before everyone? And how much did they actually get out of two-boat testing, and how much did they actually get out of the fact that they were sailing 5 months before everybody in really good conditions? While some other teams, you could argue, maybe made a mistake training in less wind and different conditions. And that's not a cost issue necessarily, that's a decision-making issue, that you decide to prepare yourself. So it's a tricky question because we clearly want the teams to be well prepared. So we don't want to stop teams from preparing themselves. At the same time, we don't want to force teams to feel that they have to build two boats or have to participate with two boats. And we don't have the final answer, but we are working very hard on it. And we're working on this answer with the teams.
And I've heard quite a bit about maybe combining services in the wet area, combined sail-off, combined commissary, just a whole bunch of the back half of the office. There's no reason for everybody to have
absolutely. I mean,
things there.
From our side as a race organizer, we have identified a lot of different things we can do to lower the cost for the teams. One thing is we're going to have less stopovers. We're going to have a shorter race time from start to finish. We're going to change the schedule of the stopovers so it's all more compact, and they will have less days to spend in port. They can have less people to work on their boats because they're given more days to do it. And a lot of different things we have already announced and things we will announce, such as shared catering, shared sail loft facilities, and all that's going to lower the cost for everyone. And those things are not so controversial. They're pretty easy for us to implement, actually. The tricky parts are the two-boat issue, two-boat testing, design cost, and things like that. That's the trickier part.
But it is a hard part, and for a smaller team to go into a boardroom when there's already a team like Ericsson that's out there doing two-boat testing, makes it a more difficult business proposition if you can't guarantee you're going to be on the podium position, don't you think?
I think it does, and I think it's a challenge that any sport is facing, and I think you will find that we will regulate that a lot more than what we have done so far. So you won't find Ericsson out two-boat testing next year because they won't be able to. If they are going to participate in the next race, which has not been announced either. So I think we clearly see that we want to grow the event, and to be able to do that, the cost needs to be lower, and it needs to be clear that it doesn't cost you more than this to be competitive.
And what do you think that number is? 15 million euro, 20 million euro, 10
the 15 million euro number has been a number, 14, 15 million euro, that has come up a lot from companies and sponsors, and we think that it should be possible to do a competitive campaign around that figure with a new boat. The question is, how do you define competitive? It doesn't guarantee you winning, because there's a lot of other things that comes into play to win, but it can guarantee you that you can win a leg or you can be on the podium. But I think it's sometimes when we judge from the outside, we judge the results in the race. It's sometimes a bit too easy to draw conclusions that this was just because people had two boats. I'm pretty confident with the Torben Grail's team. If they put them in the Delta Lloyd boat, they can probably be in a very similar position on the scoring board as they are, because they're a very good team, very well prepared, a lot of experience in the team. So they knew very well the sail choices, everything from the ABN campaign, and they brought a lot of information with them, and they sailed the boat well, and that's what should win the race. We can't over-regulate the event, so you say that any team that wins has a competitive advantage they shouldn't be able to have. It's a balancing act, but clearly the perceived difference is not always the same as the real difference.
Great. Well, thank you very much for taking up a lot of your time. Anything else you'd like to say to the worldwide viewership of Sailing Anarchy?
No, I hope they all follow us in the race, and we appreciate all the comments. I mean, we're getting a lot of good feedback actually from that community, and I think we do listen to it and we do read it.
Well, hopefully we'll print nicer things in the future.
No worries.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. This is Sailing Anarchy TV signing off.